All right, let's get right to it. Let's talk about game one because the Celtics ran away with this one 107-89, and they kind of attacked them in a lot of ways that, I mentioned in my finals preview going into the series. They can blow by you. All their guys can handle the ball at once. Porzingis and Horford are very versatile offensive players, maybe in ways you don't normally think of. And I just saw versatility from this Celtics offense in game one. Strictly talking game one because, I'm not trying to overreact to one game, but this is why the Celtics have been good all year. Defensively, they executed their game plan well against the Mavericks. They were clearly trying to switch everything. I didn't see as much drop in this game. I'll have to go back and watch this game again, but there was no consistent drop coverage in this game from the Celtics. They actually switched a lot. Jaylen Brown started out on Luka Doncic, and they just switched everything. And how the Celtics guard Luka Doncic, to me, that's the question this series revolves around. And they made Luka take, how many shots was it? Luka was 12 of 26, and this is the first playoff game of his career where he has one assist. He had one assist. He had 4 turnovers. He started to heat up a bit in that third quarter where the Mavericks cut the lead down to 8. But even then, I had 2 thoughts in this game. One, the Celtics were making every 3, and you could maybe make the case that there was going to be a regression to the mean coming, but I liked how the Celtics were getting their shots. Jason Tatum, the discourse is going to kill me all series about this guy, but I thought Jason Tatum, at points in this game, he had some rough moments as a driver, but I thought to start this game, it was very clear the Mavericks were just loading up on Tatum, and Tatum was just making the correct pass every time, and that's how the Celtics started getting threes going. It was penetration, then kick out, and it's a Derek White 3, or an Al Horford pick and pop 3, and I thought Jason Tatum's mindset was just really good in this game. Same for Jaylen Brown, who was absolutely fantastic all game. His decision-making, beating everybody off the dribble, that nasty in-between crossover into a dunk on 2 Mavericks, that was spectacular. I just loved the offensive direction of the Celtics tonight, and when the Celtics do that, they just blow teams out the window, and they did it again tonight, and they had multiple sore spots that they could poke at on the Mavericks defense where they would just get a good shot every time. And Jaylen Brown blew by Luka a lot. Jason Tatum blew by PJ Washington a lot. Drew Holiday and Derek White, they blew by Kyrie Irving a lot. Like, there was a lot of blow-bys in this game, and it was just deep penetration, kick out to 3, and then Kristaps Porzingis really blew the game open when he checked in at about the 8-minute mark in the first quarter, and from there, the game just completely changed. The Celtics were giving him the ball on the block against the smaller defender because the Mavericks were switching that, whether it was Jaden Hardy, Josh Green, Luka. Kristaps Porzingis was shooting over the top, drew a foul on Luka on one of those post-ups, and then was just impacting the game on the defensive end. Had a few nasty blocks, including one on Josh Green towards the end of the first quarter. And Porzingis, I thought, just blew that game open, just with his height, his shooting ability, and he was just on absolute fire. And when the Celtics are clicking like that, they are tough to beat. But to me, their offensive process, which is just something I'm going to be tracking all series, it was great tonight. Everybody was well-balanced scoring. The Celtics had 6 guys in double figures. Not only that, Sam Hauser came in, provided 2 threes, spacing, stalled Luka out a few times on a few defensive possessions, on back-to-back defensive possessions, actually. And that's the rub with Sam Hauser. Every time you watch a Celtics game, you could just tell that team is going to be like, all right, let's pick on this guy on defense. And then all of a sudden, he surprisingly stands up a really good offensive player, and you're like, oh. And the next thing you know, he's running down the court looking to locate a spot on the three-point line. Al Horford even on a few switches on Luka played well. Kyrie Irving did get him a few times, but Al Horford for the most part played well. They played great defense on Kyrie Irving. who needs to play better for the Mavericks to have any chance in this series. 12 points on 6 for 19 shooting is just not going to cut it. But overall, the Celtics defense on Luka was great. They were just like, all right, we'll just live with the one-on-one coverage. We're not giving up any corner threes, and we're not giving up any lobs. They put Horford on Derrick Jones Jr., and they put Jason Tatum on whoever was the roll man, whether it was Gafford or Lively. By the way, I think the Mavericks are going to have to make this adjustment sooner or later, but Lively's just going to have to start or just play significantly more minutes than Gafford. Lively's just better at switching. He's better at guarding Porzingis, even though he had a few dumb fouls tonight, but he was physical with Porzingis whenever Porzingis would try to go up and set those high ball screens. Really good rim runner, obviously, but with how they put Tatum on the roll man and just let the Celtics switch everything, really just took away a lot of stuff. Luka definitely, got his in a lot of one-on-one situations, but if you're the Celtics, you'll live with that. 26 shots from Luka. Like I said, only 1 assist, 4 turnovers. You absolutely live with that. And then, take away the corner threes. PJ Washington was 0 for 3 from 3. He only missed 1 corner 3. The other 2 were not in the corners, which PJ Washington, and the numbers show it, is not as good from the other areas of the three-point line like he has been from the corners with Dallas. And then Derrick Jones Jr., you'll live with him taking 9 shots as long as he doesn't get any threes up either, because he was 1 for 2 tonight, and it was a lot of Luka Doncic pull-up threes. Kyrie Irving did miss some open threes in this one, but with the way the Celtics generated shots, even if it was a lot of three-pointers, that's just something you could see them sustaining because, like I mentioned in the finals preview, the Mavericks defense has been good all playoffs, but they've also only been able to load up on 1 or 2, star ball handlers or, 1 or 2, two straws that stir the drink on offense for the opposing team. And the Mavericks are able to load up really well on that. And Luka and Kyrie have made a commitment to the defensive end. But aside from Derrick Jones Jr. and, Josh Green, especially when he gets his corner 3 going so he can stay on the court longer, I'm looking at who can guard the Celtics wings, because PJ Washington, I think that's a little bit of a tough matchup for Tatum. He's just a little bit quicker, and I think Tatum's just a little bit bigger and longer than Washington, so that's a tough matchup. Jaylen Brown has literally just been blowing by everybody these playoffs. Nobody can seem to stay in front of Jaylen Brown. I picked the Celtics in 6, and Game 1 kind of showed why, but I expect this to be a long series. I don't expect Luka to only have 1 assist again. I expect, some ways the Mavericks can adjust and get Luka the ball in different spots on the court. Maybe get him on the block more against Holiday and Derek White. Derek White only guarded Luka for 3 possessions, I remember. And, Drew did guard Luka quite a bit. And, Drew did guard Luka quite a bit too, but the Mavericks were clearly trying to get Drew off of Luka because the Celtics were switching, and I thought they did well on those switches. And I thought they took advantage of the switches on the other end by giving Porzingis the ball around that mid-foul line area. Even though the Mavericks cut it to 8, the Celtics just have so many ways to beat you, where even if their threes aren't falling, if they just stick to their offensive process and make sure it's sound and disciplined, they could get whatever shot they want. And I like the mentality from Tatum tonight, even though he did shoot 6 for 16, like I mentioned, and, had some really bad turnovers. I actually didn't mind this game from Tatum. He played really well on the defensive end, and he was the one who kick-started the Celtics offense because he was getting into the paint, and he had the most defensive attention tonight. If you watch the game, the Mavericks were clearly loading up the paint on Jason Tatum. The Mavs were throwing some really random and dumb doubles at Jason Tatum at the top of the key. There was one Luka did where Jason Tatum was like, all right, I'll just make the easy pass. And that's where Tatum is at this point with this team. This team is so good that Tatum, the stuff that he does that won't pop out on the screen, being crucial to the Celtics defensive game plan, even though there's a lot of good defenders on the floor. Him still getting the most defensive attention, even though there's 4 other all-star caliber players on the court with him. I still liked the game from Tatum, even if he didn't shoot well, and even though I thought, as a driver in particular in this game, I thought he had some iffy moments. But we all know the discourse is going to be done with Tatum. I already have seen, oh, well, Tatum's just along for the ride, blah, 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 but whatever. I do have one more point before I go, because, again, this is just one game, but I forgot to mention this in my finals preview. Well, I didn't forget it so much as I thought, the last point, the 5th point, I was either bouncing between, the rebounding, like I mentioned. By the way, the Mavericks had 50 rebounds, Celtics had 55. But the other point I wanted to bring up was at what point which team shortens their rotation first in this series. Because you wonder how long Pritchard and Hauser would last out there with Luka and Kyrie in this series. Or, on the other side, how are the Mavericks going to pick up the slack if one of Luka or Kyrie has an off game like tonight? Because you really didn't get much from Jaden Hardy in that first half. He had some garbage time points at the end, so the stats look better than what they are. But I'm looking at the Mavericks. They took out Luka towards the end of the, first quarter, and Hardy was in there with Kyrie Irving. And I'm looking at Jaden Hardy just trying to create offense, and I'm just like, yeah, you had some moments being reintroduced into the rotation last series, but if this is what the Mavs got, and then they tried to do Tim Hardaway Jr. in the third quarter, and it just didn't work out, maybe you put in some Dante Exum, see what happens there, but you wonder if the Mavericks are going to be the first team to shorten their rotation first because a few of their guys just end up, for this particular matchup, not being playable. But it was a very statement-like game one from the Celtics. I thought they were going to come out a little bit flat because they were the team that had the most days off, but their offensive process was great. They were making a bunch of threes, and the underrated part about them, they executed their defensive game plan because they have a bunch of damn good defensive players.